Good evening. This is Ryan Miller from the Internet Kids Safe Show. Welcome for tonight, where I speak primarily about keeping kids safe in a digitally immersed life. I'm sorry. So I appreciate you joining me tonight. I talk about internet awareness, oversight, and controls. If you would like to participate in the conversation, you can dial in at 919-518-9773, or you can participate via Skype on Computers 2K Voice. So I hope you're all ready for a nice weekend. My last weekend show, I ended the show letting you know that I'm celebrating my 25 years of marriage, and we were planning on going away, and we had a little bit of a trauma coming up, and that situation is not resolved. Unfortunately, my wife and I didn't get to go away to celebrate, had to stay home. My wife and daughter are still tending to our friend who is in the hospital. So life is always throws us curveballs, and I'm thankful for them, but at the same time, we pray as we go through them. I want to offer a disclaimer as I talk about this topic about kids living in a digital life, that it has many tangential topics that build into that big subject area, and it crosses over into multiple domains. So I like to start off by saying that I am not an attorney. However, I've done tremendous amount of legal research and looking at law, case law, and seeing what statutes are per state, but I am not an attorney. I'm not a paralegal. I am not a law enforcement. However, I do bring into my perspectives of understanding what our constitutional rights are in certain situations. And I am not a psychologist, psychiatrist, or therapist. I am married to someone in that profession, and I also speak from that domain as well. So tonight's topic is I've titled it Live Streaming in the Public School. So first I want to talk about what live streaming is and what happens in a live streaming experience, and then how I've seen it actually play out inside of academia. So first of all, live streaming is a way that you can take a smartphone device and or a PC that has a webcam with a microphone, that you can have a video, I can capture video anywhere that I am mobile and broadcast it out onto the internet. So there are platforms that I can just broadcast it, and I can just save it directly onto YouTube, that it is a very private broadcast. I can restrict it only to the audience that is subscribed to my channel, that I give permissions to people to see that particular video. There are other applications that give you that same level of privacy, that you can just record it, save it, and archive it. But the live streaming that is normally related to this description are applications which are becoming very popular. As a matter of fact, this year, 2015, the #1 app in the App Store rated is Periscope. That is a live streaming platform where we can broadcast on a device. It's meant to be on a smartphone, but also be on a tablet, that you video record with audio, and it gets broadcast out to other Periscope users that either follow you or find your broadcast and that can watch that broadcast. That broadcast, for those that are creating that, I am active on Periscope under the name parent_dome, that if people were to download the application and search for Parent Dome, they could follow me and they could see all my broadcasts when I am live. As a broadcaster, I choose to have those live broadcasts saved, and there's a separate tool that I am saving them to, that I send people to, that they can see all of my broadcasts. And I will put that actually up in the chat roll for those people that are participating in chat, that you have access to see those previous broadcasts. Pardon me for 1 second. So this is it's called catch.me/parentdome. And in there is all of the broadcasts that I've personally done via live casting or live streaming as an archive. There's probably 250 what I would call episodes. It's called the Internet Kid Safe Show on Periscope. I always talk about these three topics. So live streaming has multiple platforms, Periscope being one, Ustream is another, Blab is another one, which is a little bit more interactive than the previous two. And then Skype is a live streaming platform as well. Different functionality depending upon the platforms you use. Some are more centric to business, some can be gated down, some cannot, some have a video record available to them, some do not. Well, live streaming in the school was this topic, which there's been numerous conversations going around about the appropriateness of leveraging the power of technology inside of academia. There have been discussions about schools are now equipping their students with laptops and tablets. The schools are putting certain technology on the tablets. The kids have access to internet, or they may not have internet or Wi-Fi. Students may have an agreement as to what they can put on that device or not. Some schools have gone as far as to put additional protections and or kind of like spyware on the devices to kind of keep a track of those devices as to where they go. So schools are very engaged about using technology to help in the education system. So it's kind of like a test ground for them. As new technology comes up, they want to experiment and test with it. And because it's new, I often say that we have knowledge on the power of this technology, but we may not have the appropriate wisdom on how to use that technology. And I'm a proponent of hitting a pause button, and let's look at the benefits. Absolutely, there's a huge amount of benefits of taking advantage of technology. Also, there are some unintended consequences and or risks, and often the risks are not evaluated in a full context because there's a lot of energy focused on the benefits. So the risks and or a risk mitigation plan is not heavy part of the discussion process. And they're very quick to do the experimentation and testing. So tonight's topic is live streaming in schools. It became an issue for me because I was on Periscope, I was broadcasting, and I also like to enjoy watching what other people are broadcasting, get a diversity of opinions, get some ideas as to how other people are handling their communication through these platforms. And as I said, I'm not a broadcaster in the sense that this is a new forum for me, so I'm kind of finding my way. And I appreciate these opportunities, and I like to learn from others how to do it professionally in a sense. So when I was watching these other broadcasts, on my feed popped up somebody that I follow on Twitter that came into my feed who was an educator in the state of Colorado. So I look at my feed and it's like, oh, I recognize this name from the state of Colorado. And I click on the feed and it is inside a 5th grade classroom where the teacher has got her Periscope on her phone and she's broadcasting all the students in her classroom as she is teaching. Now, I have some opinions about this, and there are some issues about the law. So if I were to look directly from the law, that there is no expectation of privacy in a public space. So that's what the law says. But there's a little bit of difference when you're inside of academia because you don't have the ability to leave the institution. That if a child felt his privacy was at risk, they have the ability to escape. If I feel my privacy is at risk because of somebody videotaping me, I have the ability to escape and remove myself from that situation. In the school, the children are captive. Not only do they have a power differential, they are captive. So there's not the ability for a child to say, oh, I'm not supposed to be on video because I have some custody issues that, I mean, not even a kid, a 5th grader's not even going to say that, but there are some things inside that classroom that the parent, or pardon me, the teacher may not be aware of relative to custody issues, that there are other laws that are applied to academia. And there's an act called COPPA, Child Online Privacy and Protection Act, which is designed, and it has a list of items, and it has changed over the years. It was enacted in 1998, but it has subsequent changes to keep up with the transition of technology. And honestly, I don't think it has been updated to accommodate live streaming in that particular act in protecting children's online privacy and their protection. So this video that I put over in the chat roll, if people see that, there's a hyperlink to a YouTube video that I actually downloaded this broadcast that was on Periscope. This is just evidence in what I say about the permanence of the internet, because this woman deleted this video. This video is no longer available on the Periscope platform. She did not save it into a cache repository, but it was public. And there are things that you can do that are screen capture for images, and I can download videos. So it is permanent. So I'm not using this as a tool to call out this particular individual in any way, shape, or form. I'm not. I downloaded this video as evidence that this is happening, that I don't have to create a story for anybody. I'm showing you what transpired. Now, I'm not a video editor by any stretch of the imagination as well, but I did the best I could to shield the faces of the children in this broadcast. That I made every possible effort I could to not put this in public, these children. Now, I would not be the violator if I had, because this is someone else's video that they have already released to the public in a much, much broader audience than I had. But I wanted to do this, and I put text in there to talk some bullet points about this issue. So after the episode, or whenever, you can download that video or just watch it live on YouTube. And it's a little disturbing that this kind of thing is happening inside a school, but this is a teacher doing this and making, I don't know the purpose behind it. I understood if she had created a video record that she could review her teaching styles and have peers criticize or critique her on her teaching process. I think that's very powerful. I applaud that. I honestly think this was a transgression. I think this was an honest mistake, that this woman had the knowledge of the power of this technology, and that she didn't think it all the way through on the wisdom, on the appropriateness of whether this should have gone out into the public space. So this was a young woman in her 20s that made this decision. Well, here's the other side of the live streaming that I wanted to talk about, and that is what the children are doing on live streaming. This past week, I have made a transition on my approach on dealing with certain things that are happening on the internet. I am using this platform here to speak about how to be proactive in empowering parents to increase their awareness, to provide the oversight, and to establish the controls to keep their kids safe on the internet with such powerful, powerful technology. And I've shared the statistics with you before, that it's 94% of parents think their kids are safe on the internet. That leaves 6% of kids that are at risk. Well, that's actually not true. That the 94% of parents that think their kids are safe on the internet are not safe because they don't have any oversight. And I was on a broadcast just a little while ago that I had shared that if you put technology in children's hands and you have no oversight, any possible conclusion about the child's behavior on the internet is fabricated. I use the air quotes because it's a story. It's a story that we fashion to make ourselves feel comfortable in the hope that our children are safe. Because one thing that claim says, absent of oversight, we have no evidence to support our claim that the children are safe. I could make the claim that my child is a unicorn on the internet, and that would have the same validity in the state that my child is safe on the internet, absent of the oversight component. Now, remember, I am not about taking technology away. I'm not about deleting apps, and I'm not about disconnecting. That's not my mission. My mission is that I deal with a broad audience that have different views on how they parent. You got single parents, blended families, all different psychological, emotional relationships in the dynamic of the home. And that the oversight to me is it's a stepped process, in that once I put this device, it's actually my device. I want to establish a relationship between myself and the child with whose device this is, who's the legal owner, who's the contract holder, where the legality stops with this, transition the ability for a child to use it, but set up some rules on it, and then determine what functionality they can have based upon their age, their responsibility, always supported through oversight. And that we can give you additional freedoms, but I'm going to check. I'm going to give additional freedoms, I'm going to check. But that checking never disappears. That the frequency of checking may change, but your ability to check never disappears. I shared in my one communication with my family that I have visibility into all my daughter's online activity. Photos, texts, comments, videos, everything. Now, some of that stuff is inappropriate for me as the male to be involved in that discussion. And my wife is the one that has a discussion about something which may be a little sensitive. But my wife and I had this discussion outside of my daughter's ears, that we are the parents and that we're going to talk about parenting direction with my daughter as a couple, and that, or she may take an action and report back to me, that we have this visibility into what her activity is. If you want to participate in the conversation, feedback with me, I welcome it. You can call in at 919-518-9773 or chat in the chat roll at Computers 2K Voice. So I'm talking about the live stream, and I just want to backtrack for just one moment. And I had talked about the sandbox communication and bidirectional communication. And I want to do another personal reflection for us, that if we are adults, and one of the forms that we communicate is via email, and that if we send a frequency of a relative frequent amount of emails, this behavior I'm going to share with you is probably going to make sense. That I have a discipline is when I am drafting an email for whatever I need to do, there's the email that I write and don't send, and then there's the email that I write and do send. Because the text is a static format, and that if I have to do something that is persuasive and convincing or argumentative or whatever the context of my email needs to be, I know that my language is not going to be based upon my words. It's going to be the interpretation of those words, the perception of those words. So I do my best to communicate clearly, and I try to do it with short, previous sentences, but unfortunately, that the ability to stop someone's misunderstanding of what I say only happens when I have an extended dialogue, a bidirectional communication. The email is not bidirectional. It's a send, read, respond. And that they've already fostered some opinion about what I read, and it could be based upon my intention, or it could be completely different. Well, in the form of this communication that happens right now, every day, through texting, this is something that we see, that words and pictures, we can draw an emotional opinion based upon that image that is coming through us in this text. When we get into live streaming, you have this other dynamic, and that is the video piece, the audio piece that takes the conversation that one person, me, you can see me. You can see my inflection, you can see my verbal and nonverbal communication, and you get the inflection of my voice all into one package. The only thing you don't smell, you just don't smell me, which is a good thing. So when we are communicating in this platform, me to one to many, the feedback mechanism is the text. And I will perceive something based upon that text. And this is where the domain of the cyberbullying comes in. This is where it often is levied at the words that are intended to be harmful, or the words that are not intended to be harmful but can be interpreted as harmful. And Whether you get a response or not, those feelings are starting to build. Well, the live streaming platform has this dynamic as well, that the broadcaster is communicating, and they're communicating their message as I am to you, and I can receive a text, and it could be harmful. What happened in the school was one directional, that she was making her communication. There was no way to respond back to her and say, oh, you better turn your location settings off because you don't want to reveal where these kids are. You don't want to be calling these children out by name because you're not supposed to be telling people whose children are where in school. That communication piece was done. It was just a live video feed that went out over to the internet. What is happening with children is that they are taking that live streaming experience and doing it themselves inside the school. And their friends themselves are seeing these videos, and the wider internet is seeing these videos. And unfortunately, parents are not aware of this either. There's no visibility that their children are doing these live casts. There's no visibility to see that that broadcast even happened. On the internet today, if you were to download the Periscope application, and I would suggest just look at it, see what it's like, and click on the little globe and look at some of these live broadcasts that are happening right now. Right now at 8 o'clock at night on a Friday night, there will be countless young girls broadcasting from their bedrooms, not saying much, but there will be a lot of comments coming into these young girls. And when someone like myself finds this, I interact with these children, and I've got a growing list at this point, because there are people in there that want to cause those children harm, that I say, hey, do your parents know you're on Periscope? Do your parents know you're on Meerkat? No, my parents don't know. You may want to talk to them about going online. They don't care. Okay. Can you turn off your location settings? Oh, no, why? Well, I know that you're living at this road right here, and you're inviting strangers into your bedroom. You're inviting strangers into your bathroom, and you can see these comments are not very nice. Would your parents want these people sitting in your bedroom saying these things to you right now? No, I wouldn't, but they are. So I'm out there advocating to keep children safe, and in a format that I broadcast on, I take the time to do that. But I don't have enough hours to be the defender for all those children that are not making wise choices, that their parents aren't seeing this going on. I'm hoping to raise many people that will do that, but that is on the reactive side of what is happening. I draw attention that this behavior is happening, and the fact that parents say it's not is not any evidence to claim that it's not. They can't confirm or deny it's happening, so they just say it's not happening. So I am a huge proponent of, again, don't take the phone away and don't disconnect or delete the app. Someone says it seems like streaming is something they want to be doing because everyone is talking about it. And this person, Jeff, is spot on. It is a very popular thing. Periscope is the #1 downloaded app for 2015, most popular app. And it's through a Twitter platform, which is anonymous. It is completely anonymous. That children are coming in from all over the world, and they're doing this is in the predator community, that it trolls people down to take them down a path. And I really don't want to go down this dark tunnel about predator behavior, but I think it's important that you understand how children can get pulled into this, not by their own volition. It's not, they don't know, they don't have the wisdom yet. And unfortunately, the first step that the predators take is to create distance between the child and the parent, and they introduce fear to create that barrier. So this is one of the important things about that oversight, that you can see this happen. So I'm going to dovetail for a moment. I want to go back to the live streaming in a little bit, but I want to share a personal story that something happened this week, and I shared this on Periscope as well. So I have a very dear friend who lives close to me, who is a technology guy. He is super technology guy. He is like my go-to person on certain things that I need technology assistance on. He has got 3 children. and 2 of them are of the age that they have access to smartphones. He is the father that is very secure, that he has his router secure, all of his devices are secure. He knows which apps his children have. He reviews the apps before they get on the phone, and they've established responsible use of technology. And this father still has oversight on the child's devices. And as they behave, he gives them more freedom. As they behave, they get more freedom. As they disobey, they pull it back. So he watches his children's texts all the time, just to make sure that if something was coming down the path, that he would be aware of it and that he could be prepared for the conversation or start the conversation. Well, all of a sudden, the texts stop. So if you have a child that's doing 200 to 500 texts a day and they go down to 0, that should set off something on the radar. Well, if you don't know that they were doing 200 to 500 texts a day and then all of a sudden it went down to 0, you don't know that there was something changed. You didn't see it change. So what he did, he saw it drop down to 0. He grabbed his son's phone and found that there were 2 applications on the phone. One application was a Vault app, and the other was an encrypted application for sending text messages. So he finds those 2. He has a conversation with his son. What are you doing with these apps? And he said, Dad, I know you're reading my text, but I wanted to have private communication with my friend, and I didn't want you to see that. And he said, I can understand you wanting to do that, but that's not going to happen. If you want to communicate, I'm going to see what you're saying. So it facilitated a conversation between he and his son. He sends me an email, or he instant messages me through Facebook, and he says, Ryan, are you around? I said, yeah, I'm not round like a pear, but I'm here. He says, do you by any chance have a child contract for technology use? And he knows what I'm doing. And I said, yeah, like, of course I do. What's going on? And he explains the story to me. So I send him over this document. And I tell him, this is a document that I created. It's a combination of things that I've done through my research. And it's really a 2-party agreement. It's an agreement between you, the child, and you and the child. It establishes who is the owner of the device, sets up the parameters in which you can use it, what level of control, and it's a very nice, fluid agreement, but it's meant to be a boilerplate. And the boilerplate means this is an outline that you can strike out, edit, modify any way you choose based upon your relationship with your child. Well, I knew his child. I had a feeling that document was going to be used pretty much the way it was presented, based upon myself knowing my friend. So he took it, he modified it, and he added some security features in there because he's a technology security guy that were fabulous, that only those in the security domain would really understand what he was talking about when he put that language in it. So he presented that document to his son. They had a conversation about it, and the son signed the agreement. So I get a message back and he said, Ryan, we did this. Thank you so much. He signed it and he was totally fine with it. Then I get an instant message on my Facebook later that was a more heart-hugging response, was that I had a one-on-one conversation. After we did the contract stuff, they had this conversation that's like coming from the heart. Listen, son, I love you. You know that this is just to keep you safe. And the son said, Dad, I'm really glad you did this because this could have gotten in a place that I didn't want it to go. And I actually want to have your oversight. I want to have you looking at this. And that was it was so beautiful to have that happen. Here is a good parent doing the best that they know with what they know. He's got a lot more awareness and oversight than many people do. He was able to identify the problem in advance. He saw a change in behavior. He had no abilities to see the change in behavior in advance of something other coming down the road. He caught it so early that the texting stopped, bing, on the radar. Many parents don't see evidence until it's way worse. I mean, way worse, which involves the law or therapists, that the children have withdrawn away from the family. The language has changed dramatically. There's physical hurting of themselves through cutting, or there's a a disciplinary problem in the school, or even worse. That's the evidence that most people are addressing, as opposed to the proactive side. Proactive was, I saw it, identified it, I addressed it, had a conversation, relationship restored, keep on moving. So if you want to, I'm going to offer an invitation again, 919-518-9773, Computers 2K Voice. My name is Ryan Miller from ParentDome.com. And just a brief segue, the purpose of what I talk about is based upon all of this research that I've done on this particular topic. And at ParentDome.com is how you gain access to what my friends term the university. The university is dealing with these, it's an educational platform, has multiple modules that are dealing with very, very diverse topics. So I deal with pornography on the internet. I deal with different components of the internet, such as devices, the gateways, the connections. I help even in the computer domain to understand what peer-to-peer networking is, or what BitTorrents are, or what Tor is. I get into the technology aspects. But here's the thing. It's not meant to be this overwhelming, you're walking into this college university library. That's not it. This is a journey that coming into the Parent Dome family is that you come in once and you camp out until your children are out of your house. If you've got multiple children, this is a resource that is continually expanding based upon new technology and adding stuff into there all the time. New apps, I'm doing app reviews all the time. This kind of conversation on live streaming will be bundled in there as well. I already have a ton of stuff on live streaming in there. So it's a journey. And if you have multiple children, or if you're grandparents, it's a great resource for grandparents, for their children, to help with their grandchildren, because they even talk with the young kids, the young games. So I just wanted to give an introduction to Parent Dome as an educational platform, that this issue and the other episodes that I talk about, in addition to what I broadcast every day on Periscope, is contained inside what my friends call the university. And I love how they identify it, because there is so much content there. It's meant to be the place that you could get your questions answered. That whatever the question is relative to this internet bubble that we have, my goal is to have it reside inside my university. So I kind of had a brain fugue there, and I forgot where I was going. I was talking about live streaming, talked about my friend with his letter, his involvement, and the restoration that happened with that family, which was absolutely fantastic. So I want to talk about the relationship with technology as it starts from the very beginning. That I was listening to someone talk about, we're coming on the Christmas season, and there's going to be a lot of technology going into children's hands. And they were coming from the presence that the perspective that you're going to give them this, and you're going to have to expect them to do certain things on it. This is just what kids will do, and it's the peer pressure, and they're going to want to explore, and they're going to want to download these apps and experiment. And I was trying to share with this person that doesn't have to be the case. That when I was talking about my friend with this agreement, that if, regardless of where the child is and how long they've had access to technology, based upon an awareness, it's not a problem for us to tap the brakes, take a moment of pause, use more words, and say, children, you know what? I'm human. And I think I made some mistakes along the way. And I think you've seen them. Well, I think I may have done something a little bit too much. And I want to talk to you about it. I'm listening to this guy that's telling me about things on the internet that I had not known about before. And it's making me nervous about what you may be doing on the internet. And right now I'm using a lot of words in like this role play, but it's made me nervous. And I'm not saying that you guys are doing anything that is dangerous or bad, because I think you guys are good kids. But there's this other side of the web that is dangerous. So I want to set a conversation with you that I want to know what you're doing on the web, so I can make sure that I'm doing things to make sure you're safe. And this is where I was going, where I had my ADD moment. And it was about the role of the predator. And that the predator is the person that stalks prey. And I told you before that they cultivate them in groups. But the way they operate is like a friend. They engage them as a friend, and that they find something in common and they talk about that common thread for a while, often relates to music, often relates to something in a TV show that they will have in common, and then it will get into a different conversation. Not dangerous yet, not dangerous, but it will get into the realm of a secret or something private. Now, when you're dealing with someone who's very young, a secret or private can be a very powerful tool to manipulate someone. And predators are very good at manipulation. There's certain psychology profiles that are very, very powerful at manipulation, and this is one of them. That they will create a sense of fear by exposing something that is a secret or private. Now, that power of that leverage is not very strong early on, but they are working to build that lever. They're working to build that power leverage over the child in that grooming process. And this is where it happens in cyberbullying as well. It's that text that somebody sent that winds up getting shared to a lot of people. That I won't share this with a lot of people if you do this or if you do that. It's this manipulative control to make somebody do something that's inappropriate or to put them down because you said this, these are your words, and I'm just going to share it with the world. And there are certain applications that is pretty much its sole premise, is to do this public sharing of risky behavior. Snapchat is one of those. Yik Yak is one of those. Another one that's been out for a little while that many people, I'm going to say it, and I don't think people are going to go, what the heck is that? After School is an application that the kids have. They hide it. And this is all anonymous. And that there's this type of communication that's going on all over the place that is invisible. It's anonymous. Cyberdust. Cyberdust is one that's going on that the messages go out and they're very mean and then they disappear. But in this dynamic of the predator is going to do things to create leverage over your child to pull them down this path. In the example of my friend with his texts, that he had the visibility to see what the communication looked like, he was able to apply his discernment as to what that language looked like and to who his child was engaging and to watch the behavior. So when I talk about this, I want to say that the oversight is critical, but the action on the oversight, whether you have a conversation or you engage or you direct based upon what you see, is the variable. The platform being, I need to see everything that's happening here. I'm not invading their privacy because they don't have privacy until they get out of my house. I'm not going to allow my child to stay in her bedroom with a stranger. I'm not going to allow some guy to go up into her bedroom. I'm not going to put a computer in her bedroom. I'm not going to put, there's no privacy in my house. You will have privacy as you get, there's personal privacy that let me not be ridiculous, because she has her personal space privacy and her body privacy and privacy for her room, but I will not allow certain behaviors in the house, not allow her to lock the door in the house, those kind of things. That based upon the child's responsibility, I'm going to see what's happening, what their activity is on the device, and that if it goes down this dangerous way, I can call attention to it, or I can wait and see how my child navigates it and see if it gets too bad that I need to intervene, give them enough that they can experiment and see how it's going to go. But you have to make those decisions. You have to see, if you don't know it's happening and how it can go down a bad path, you can't stop it from going down a bad path because it's going to wind up down there. So people maybe my language is not appropriate, or the way I convey this is not correct. But I want to say the oversight is a critical piece, but that's not meaning that you need to take action on what you see. Still allow your child the freedom to navigate and explore and experiment and see if they can trust things. But as these kind of devices go, we make a decision that I'm going to give you the ability to make a phone call, and this is the ICE list. ICE list is in case of emergency. You've got mom, dad, neighbor, grandparents, and a friend. That's the ICE list. Anything happens, you can use those phone numbers to call someone. You have your text list. These are the people that I approve that you can text. If there's a new person that you want to talk about adding to the text list, we will add that, but it's locked down. Now, if we want to, as the child has more responsibility, they say, Dad, I really like to use this app. I'm like, wow, I want to see what that app does in advance of providing that app. So if anybody wants to comment, please do at 919-518-9773, or they can communicate via Skype at Computers2K Voice. So a personal example for me, I don't know if I talked about this or not, but there's an application called Musical.ly, which is very, very funny. And I was live broadcasting myself this week, running an errand with my daughter, and I was sharing to my Periscope audience. I always broadcast and they see my office all the time, and I took them out on the road, which was a treat for them. And I had my daughter and I said, sweetie, can you show them the Musical.ly videos that you made? So she has this application called Musical.ly that she creates these very funny videos that reside on her phone. My wife and I make a decision as to whether she is able to publish those videos on Musical.ly. If they all reside here first, we see them, we review them, and then we give permission or denial as to what happens with those videos. So we're riding in the car, and I've got my Periscope up on my dashboard, and she's showing her Musical.ly videos to the people that follow me on Periscope. And I was laughing because I thought they were absolutely hysterical. She was so creative, and I thought it was really cool. And some of them we do together, because it's a fun father-daughter kind of crazy thing, and I can be goofy. So I'm sharing how my policy is on an application, which is not necessarily a big, dangerous application, and my daughter doesn't think it's dangerous. But when we look through the videos that are on there being broadcast by others, they're very, very funny. But then every once in a while, you'll see people that are dressed in a way that my daughter would say, why did she do that? And my daughter sees that. It's like, that's not inappropriate, and their parents shouldn't allow that video to go up. And she goes, you're right, Dad, they shouldn't do that. What's that kid thinking? Well, I'm glad she has that discernment, but I want to instill this in my child and not be responding to it. I want her to have that foundation. So during that same broadcast, I thought, heck, why don't I interview my daughter for my audience and have her speak directly as to some of the things that I'm talking about within her local school. So I asked her, sweetie, are any kids live broadcasting in school? Meaning, are they doing Periscope or Meerkat? She said, no, I don't think so, Dad. And I said, well, I know they are because I see them pop up on my profile, and I've seen some of your kids on YouTube. And she said, and we had this conversation later, and I took her to YouTube where her friends are broadcasting live stream onto YouTube. She said, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. And I said, can you tell the people if kids sending pictures, naked pictures on the phone is a big issue in school? She's in high school, she's a freshman. She said, oh my gosh, Dad, that happens every single day. I mean, that's everywhere, Dad. I'm like, I know this, but I'm hearing it come out of my daughter's mouth. So then I asked her, well, I mean, it is a big problem. How many times a week are the police at the school for different activities, and a lot of it being related to some of this stuff that's happening on the phone? And she said, unprompted, to the audience, that the police are there every single week, every single day. Every single day, the police are at the school, and they're dealing with, sure, there's drug and alcohol issues that are going to happen inside of the high school as well. there's cyberbullying issues that they need to deal with, and there's sexting issues. And what happens on a particular school day is an unknown, but I'm telling you that these devices are part of that domain. And the school has no responsibility as to what's going on this device. It's not their device. It's not, they have a tough enough time managing the technology that's in their school that they own and controlling what teachers are doing, such as that teacher that was live broadcasting. That teacher shouldn't have done that. So now they have to be aware of how they have to stay ahead of this technology to make sure that they've got a safe teaching environment, let alone parents that are equipping their children with the ability to do things and create even greater harm. I believe the school's responsibility is a cooperative one with parents, that the school does have a responsibility to educate children about the permanence of the internet, the risks of that permanence, how it can affect your future, your ability to go to college, your ability to get a career, and how mean things can be memorialized for a long time, and what that harm can look like, and talk about appropriate use. Now, appropriate use is a very difficult thing inside the walls of academia. That's really something that's a parental responsibility that is framed from your perspective of what's right and wrong in the lens of the world. And that creating the foundation which you stand on for your family, that you're willing to draw the hard lines as to what I don't want to have happen. And I did a Periscope on this in detail the other day, and this is a difficult message to say, and I don't know how to backpedal it, but it's, I will say my view. This is my view, and people please disagree with my view, but this is my framework. That, to me, for my family and relationship with my daughter and the character that I want in her and the relationship that I have with my wife, my foundational truth on this topic is, on the subject of pornography, my view is that not in my house, because to me, pornography is the sexually objectification of people based upon reproductive parts for personal pleasure. And it has no redeeming value in my relationship and my family. And also, if I consume that, I'm also contributing to an underground market, which is the exploitation of someone's daughter or someone's son. I have a daughter. I would not want my daughter in that profession. Me consuming that would be hypocrisy to me if I was consuming it and I didn't want my daughter to participate in it. So my view is that that doesn't belong anywhere inside any piece of technology in my house at all. So with that view, I will put things in place to make sure that will not happen. In addition, I will put things in place that if it does happen, I have the way to stop it and not continue it. So that's for my view. Now, if you have a different view relative to that topic and you think that pornography has its age appropriateness, I would suggest that your slope has a time on it. I don't know what the time is, that if you are of the view that that content is not objectionable for someone who's 21, okay, or 20 or 18, okay. But I don't know what the time point is that you would say that, you know, I don't really want my 7-year-old watching that, or my 9-year-old or my 5-year-old. I don't know what, and I don't want to presuppose what that would be. But I would here to suggest that on that slope, if you have a timeline, that you put the things in place to make sure that you adhere to that timeline, your foundation. My barrier is off to the side. Wherever yours is, I've got the mechanisms based upon what I declare to make sure that I am consistent, to make sure my daughter doesn't consume that kind of information, doesn't gain access to that kind of information. Had the same thing with my wife. As a side note, I've conducted what's called the TNA test. Sounds pretty provocative, but the TNA don't have a normal connotation. It's for transparency and authenticity. And that I ask a couple that are caregivers of a child, are they willing to take the transparency test? And that the grader of the test, I'm going to have the wife or the wife, the female partner, be the person who grades the male partner on their pass fail of the test. And in a public environment, such as on like this, that I can see another person, I see the husband, I see the wife, I ask them, do they adhere to the rules? We're going to take this test and your wife is going to be the grade. Are you ready to take the test? Yes, I am. The test is the man, I want you to hover, take your mouse, go up to your search bar, go up by your history. I want you to open the history file. I want you to go through this past week's history and have your wife look at your history where you've been the past week. Majority of the men are like, well, why do I want my wife to see what I've been doing for the past week? And I said, that wasn't a condition of the test, that you agreed to the terms of the test. Reveal in the transparency test with your partner what you have been looking at for the past week. Or are we going to talk about the accountability side of the test, that you don't want to be accountable for what you've been looking at? So it's sad to say that the amount of times that I have actually gone through this experiment, that very, very few have held on to go through that exercise. And that behavior does not discriminate. That goes across spectrum. It's a male-female issue. It is a cross-societal issue. That is an issue that people do not want that side of them to be revealed. And very few people have relationships that they offer that kind of transparency and accountability, that they don't want eyes on in their own behavior. So I'm saying in this agreement that I have suggested to my friend is that this transparency goes both ways. This accountability goes both ways. This responsible use goes both ways. That as a parent, yeah, we have certain privileges that we can afford ourselves because we're more mature, we have responsibility, we have wisdom, but it's not going to be too far of a delta away from where our kids are and what we're expecting our kids to do. Because we also want to submit to that same authority with our spouse. That is, if we subscribe to the worldview that we want our children to have a better life than what we grew up with when they go outside of our house. So I went over a couple of topics. I wanted to go over this live streaming phenomenon that is happening inside of the schools. It is happening with the teachers themselves. I think that was a transgression, but I would not be surprised if I see it happen more and more, because there's no legislative body that's addressing this. The Department of Ed's not talking about it. The local state offices are not talking about it. It's happening with the students in school. And my overarching message is I talk about awareness, about oversight and controls, that the awareness piece precedes the oversight, because you need to be aware of where the dangers lurk and how it is used and how it's consumed and how it's controlled and how it's the connection works. You start here, and then I help to bring awareness to it, that when we go down to the oversight, you know where to look. You know what you need to check on. That having oversight just for the sake of having oversight doesn't do anything unless you know specifically where to check. So my passion is about protecting kids. I didn't get into describing this reactive side. I'm going to save that for next week's episode. I've got two names that are out there on the internet right now. One is Parent Dome, parent_dome, which I participate on social media. I have a Facebook page. It's facebook.com/parentdome. I have a Facebook group. I'm on Twitter, but I created another one out of a sense of, I guess, frustration. And it's called the Troll Hunter PD, Troll Hunter Parent Dome. I'm a troll contrarian, and that I said that people that are exhibiting bad behavior on the internet are suffering some form of pain. And I think I shared with you last week about the hockey player and that child's pain and how I was able to restore someone that was out there doing mayhem on the internet. And I was able to take that child, find his sphere of influence, and bring that child to go in a different direction. And I'm pleased to tell you that kid has checked into me and he is still on that path. He is thankful, and he is working to restore his relationship with his parents who have been really ignoring him, and he is doing things to restore that. But those children that are out there doing it, I speak sarcastically that they don't have any parents because their parents say, not my child, but these are not orphans. These do have parents. They just don't have parents that have the awareness that I teach about. They don't have the oversight that I teach about. That's not happening. So the troll hunter is going into the social media platforms such as Blab, such as Twitter, such as Facebook, and making myself known that if someone comes into your social media profile that is disruptive, please do not dispose of that life. All life is valuable. All life is precious. I know in the format of Blab that as broadcasters, people want to maintain their message and their demeanor of their broadcast, and they own that room. The host owns the ethic of the room. They own the code of conduct of the room. And I just say to those that are managing their revenue stream based upon how they're using social media platforms, if you need to hit the block button, I get it. I totally get it, because I know the content can be really, really nasty. But I would say in advance of that block, highlight, copy, and paste it in a tweet to Troll Hunter PD. Because I will, within 6 mouse clicks, do what I need to do and take them through my process to hopefully find their sphere of influence, to take that life, which I claim is in pain, and just pushing out this pain in a different direction. And I want to throw a lifeline. I want to show them that there are people out there that are willing to do what it takes in a hope to get them the help that they may need. It's a lifeline. It is a life preserver that I don't want to dispose of them. And I can't anticipate what the response will be, but I would rather be judged for doing what I do as opposed to being judged for what I don't do. So I'm taking a different position on this. I'm coming from a position of love, and that I want to take this set of the upset community of the social media, which people identify as the trolls. I'm not using that word. I use it because everybody identifies with it, but I'm going to use the word called unsub, an unidentified subject who's in pain. The way they manifest their pain comes out in different ways, but they're in pain. And I'm going to do what I do with the help of others to help that child who does have parents that is in pain before it gets worse. And the worse is the evidence that those parents are generally addressing through law or through therapy. And I will do my side, and I will do my part. I will invest my voice, my energy, and my passion to speak, to be proactive. But I'm also going to be true to who I am and try to save those that are in harm as well, that are causing the harm, because it's both sides of the equation. And unfortunately, as parents, without having the evidence, we can't make a claim which side of the equation our child is on. We can't say that they're a victim. We can't say they're not a victimizer, because without that evidence, we can't say one or the other. Absent of a connection, they could not connected at all, might not be doing anything, but if they are connected, they are either a victim or they're a victimizer, or they could be both. So name is Ryan Miller. My website is parentdome.com. My friends called the university, and I appreciate those friends for joining me tonight. And this is what I speak about, keeping kids safe on the internet. I'm passionate. I invite other people to join and contribute as to my mission in drawing this awareness to parents, because we're talking about our legacy. We're talking about our legacy in our society. So thank you very much. Hope
Hold
you all
on,
have a
hold
great
on,
weekend, and I will see you next week.
hold on a
Thank you.
second. Hold on a second. I think Sharita may have wanted to ask you something. I'm not sure though. No, she's. Are you reading the chat? Hey, Ryan.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, The Tanya Love Show, Your Healthy Pet with Gisela DiCarlo. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by Atomus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.